Hey there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Really appreciate you being here. If you were here last week, I did a live stream of the debate, and with my reactions included, it ended up taking a lot longer than I was expecting. I got a little over halfway through, and it took a little over an hour to do that. So I went ahead and cut it off there, and I'm gonna go ahead and pick up about where we left off. The question I left off last time, I think, was probably the most important question of the debate. So if you didn't catch the end of that video, I'm gonna go ahead and replay that. So let's go ahead and jump on in.
In recent years, the city has worked to diversify the types of dwellings available to rent or own. While there may be more floor plan options available, almost none of the new units or homes could be defined as affordable. How important is it for Carmel to have affordable living options? How do you define affordable, and do you want more of this type of housing in the city?
Thank you.
Essentially what they're asking is, do you want to build more five-story apartment buildings? Currently, that's the city planning's objective, is to bring us from 100,000 population to 160,000. Because we're tapped out horizontally, the only way to build moving forward is vertically, and that's allegedly, theoretically, how we're going to get that extra 60,000 people to move in here. So the idea is, with higher market competition with housing, then that will drive down housing prices. But if you're unfamiliar, I actually came from the world of real estate. I followed economics pretty closely, especially when I was doing a lot of stock market trading before I was running for mayor. But anyway, the big kicker there is, this is not a problem that's unique to Carmel. This is something that's going on all across the nation, and something I run into all the time. Top two biggest complaints I hear, or concerns from Carmel residents that when I'm out knocking doors, is number one, too many five-story apartment buildings. Number two, my taxes have gone up 40% in the past 3 years. However, the biggest contributor to that is the value of home prices has dramatically escalated. Again, it's not unique to Carmel, it's across the nation. It has to do with supply and demand. Houses were not available for a long time because people weren't moving due to pandemic, and then at the same time, the Federal Reserve dropped the interest rates down to zero, so it was extremely enticing to buy homes, so people were. Meanwhile, other people were not selling, so that created this massive skew in housing prices. And also, all the people that bought their homes locked in a extremely good APR. So basically, they're not going to be selling their new home anytime soon. And most other people have been in their home for a long time, and they also have a decent interest rate. So there's a lot of people that are just locked into 30-year mortgages at a really good rate that aren't going to sell. So because of that, housing prices, unfortunately, just aren't really going to come back down. I don't know that they'll go any higher, because this is the highest unaffordability we've ever had in our nation's history for houses. But to simply say, like, oh yeah, you're going to build more apartments and fix the housing issue here in Carmel is absurd. It's not going to happen.
I knock on doors, and I'll knock on one door and people will say there's too many apartments. And then I'll knock on another door and their neighbor will say there's not enough affordable housing, and then I'll knock on a third door and they'll say there's too many apartments and not enough affordable housing. I get it, I understand. Healthy, vibrant communities have a healthy mix of housing options. There are other cities around that have been grappling with these challenges far longer than Carmel, and I'm going to look to these peer cities and how they've solved it. But senior citizens need to be able to have homes and stay and continue to live in a more comfortable home within this community. First responders and our teachers should be able to live in the community where they protect and educate.
I hear where he's going with this, and unfortunately he's right. The problem is housing prices are just so expensive, like I said, across the land, but especially here in Carmel. The most logical solution would be to build five-story apartment buildings to theoretically help people move into them that are in the service industry, fresh teachers, young professionals. The problem is most of the apartments being built are high-end luxury apartments, which aren't really all that affordable for, you know, I don't know what else to say, but just like us regular folk. So anyway, the The kicker with five-story apartment buildings that I have, the biggest issue is that they're popping up at a rapid rate and they're coming up all over the city. I'm adamantly opposed to any five-story apartment buildings that are going to be put up next to a single-family neighborhood or anything like that. If there's a three-story apartment building that somebody wants to convert into a five-story apartment building where existing traffic flow could handle the extra residents and the parking situation could also accommodate for all the extra vehicles. And if that building were located in downtown Carmel and the apartments built were high density, low rent, then I would actually be okay with that. So because we're not building right next to a neighborhood, and this would actually address that issue. So I don't know if a piece of land exists like that. I think there might be a handful of spots where we could get away with doing that, but there's not a ton. So if a developer was interested in taking on a project like that, it is one I would actually be considered open to doing. So just full transparency on that.
This is going to take leadership, and this is going to take vision. And I will, as mayor, share this vision with developers, and I've been having these conversations already in order to hit the ground running. We need more, but we need more housing options that fit different types of needs, but we can't jeopardize our quality of life or our quality of place. I will be committed to finding these options. There are areas that are underperforming right now. The Meridian Street corridor at 116th and Meridian. We have these tall buildings and these sprawling parking lots. By the way, parking lots don't generate any property tax. So another great way to lower your property tax is to have more of these high-performing commercial areas paying taxes.
So I have mixed feelings about this. He is absolutely correct with the parking lots. That is actually a really good observation. So kudos to that. The kicker is commercial real estate has seen a massive slump since the lockdown. I haven't recently heard the statistics, but I overheard something about downtown Indianapolis commercial vacancies were absolutely skyrocketing. So to assume that Carmel will be immune to that, I think would be a little imprudent. So I don't know that I want to build more big commercial buildings, skyscraper types. I would be open to maybe tearing out a parking lot and putting a parking garage in between a couple of these buildings and then converting that parking lot space into something else. I don't know, maybe some commercial retail space for if there's a nearby neighborhood. He's talking about 31, 116th Street. If you go a little further south, 106th Street, just get closer to home place, it'd be nice to have a couple, couple spots to go check out, grab lunch, or neighborhoods that are nearby, grab dinner or something like that. So I think something like that could be cool. Or even turn it into some park, some green space, something that's actually a bit more attractive to look at. The employees would like it, the neighborhoods would like it, and I think that could be a win. But it would be better than a parking lot, and if it would be feasible, cost effective to put up a parking garage versus parking lot, that is something I would definitely be open to.
So these areas, the Meridian Street corridor, could be reimagined. So think about this. We put a parking garage in, and we have mixed use. People could live, work, and play. We could have pickleball courts, dog parks, an amphitheater. It would alleviate some of the congestion from the central district. We could do the same thing in our highest crime area. Anybody know where our highest crime area is?
I lived in home place for a while. My car got broken into like 5 times in 5 years. So I know that home place area has problems with crime. It's actually one of the things I want to do is have a higher patrol of police force in that area to try to discourage any future crime from being there.
I'll tell you, it's just south of my family's funeral home on Michigan Road between 96th and 106th. And it's because nobody lives there in front of Target and Home Depot and Kohl's. But again, a parking garage and mixed use and having different areas where people could hang out and live. Having people walking their dogs and riding their bikes with their family would decrease the crime and also increase.
I don't know that people walking their dogs will decrease crime. It would present more of an opportunity for people to get robbed, honestly.
Increase more property tax revenue and also create more spaces where we could have a variety of housing options.
Counselor Finkham?
Thank you. Attainable housing is not just a challenge for Carmel, it's a challenge across our entire country, where it's estimated that we're 4 million housing units short across this country, and we could build the size of Chicago annually and not catch up for 20 years. That's a challenge for everybody. I think the best thing we can do to make sure we have attainable housing is protect that which we already have. Tony Green and I are working on a plan to redo the overlay zone for Home Place, protect that vital, affordable homes in that area. It doesn't make sense to bulldoze a bunch more and bulldoze some that's existing and build new. But you know, we do have.
If she's talking about knocking down homes in Home Place and replace them with apartment buildings, I completely agree. If she's talking about preventing renovation from happening in Home Place, I disagree. I think Home Place is absolutely ripe for flippers to come through and really revitalize that area. It is the most affordable place to live in Carmel, from what I gather. But I know a lot of people would like to move out of their multi-store house and downsize to a one-story ranch, and Home Place is the best area to do that. So if someone were to sell their home but they want to stay in Carmel, if a renovator went in and revitalized a home that somebody sold and moved out of, whatnot, I think that would be a good opportunity. So if she's talking about kneecapping that, I'm not sure if I would agree with that. It is, I do not want to see a flipper come in, knock down the house, and then build like a two-story house or some kind of big mansion or something like that. That is something I do disagree with. So if she's talking about what I'm thinking of is keeping the skeleton of the home and revitalizing it, that's okay. I don't know if she's talking about wholesale, just stop renovation in Home Place. I certainly hoped that's not what she's talking about. It kind of seems like it, but I'm a little unsure.
You have a challenge when your underlying ground is $1 million an acre. It's really going to be hard without significant local and state and potentially federal support to build anything that would be attainable, without high rents or without a high buy-in for a homeowner.
I'm not sure if she's talking about grants or if she's talking about Section 8 or affordable housing. It kind of sounds like Section 8. I'm a little unsure of that. I hope she clarifies specifically what she means later.
Make sure, too, when we build or protect attainable housing, that we don't water down our infrastructure that we've spent so much to attract here in this community. It's one of the things that makes Carmel great is our high quality architecture. I've promised from the beginning that one of the first things I would.
On that note, I agree. We do want to keep high quality architecture. The city planning actually does a fantastic job of making sure we have a really high standard that's kept for any new buildings that come in. So I really want to say Home Place should be a revitalized area.
Do is do a housing study to truly understand what housing stock we have, where it is, what our needs are, what the demand is, and make sure we have an emphasis after that on focusing on for sale product. For the last 6 or 7 years, that's been the number one thing I've been asked from seniors who lived in my district, which is Northeast, and have to leave our community because they can't find anything to buy here. We do have apartments now which house them for renters by choice, but those people who've paid taxes here 20 to 40 years want to stay here, we don't have product. I have had conversations with a number of developers about looking at senior housing with some affordable product in it, and I think that there's some really promising conversations in that. I'm excited to see those through once I'm elected mayor.
Councilor Nelson?
I was having a conversation with teachers, and one of our teachers was able to find a home that she could afford and that she felt safe in Greenwood. So she makes that trek all the way up to teach our kids. Again, as mayor, I will be committed to creating a more robust mix of housing options so that our teachers and first responders can live and work in the area where they're teaching and protecting. Morale goes up, and it's important that we make sure that in order to keep our service businesses, like our restaurants and our assisted living homes, that people should be able to work near these places or work at these places and live near them as well.
Go ahead, Councilor Finkum.
2 additional thoughts. We also have an opportunity to thoughtfully use dollars that are coming out of expiring TIF districts to create a 501c3 or 6 or,
If a home and home place file for a remodel permit, you would be able to work with that person to update their home to slowly update home place. Yes, absolutely. I came from basically the real estate flipping industry, and home place would be an excellent place to revitalize. It would be one at a time, and it would be a slow build, slow process. But I would like to see a number of home place residents start seeing more value for their tax increase. When I was knocking doors in that area, everybody was complaining about, since they've been annexed into Carmel, their taxes have skyrocketed, and they have little to nothing to show for it. That's one reason why I want to have an increased police force in that area, is to give them a better, better protection. But also, I just walking around the streets, I noticed had a lot of potholes, and I was pretty surprised by that. So I would like to see their roads have an upkeep. Also, Home Place has a lot of issues with flooding, and I want to work with the county commissioner, or not the commissioner, I'm sorry, the assessor. So the county assessor, they are the ones who are in charge of water drainage and standing water. The previous commissioner, I said it again, previous assessor, basically just sat on it and told everybody, like, oh, I don't care, like, it's going to be too expensive to do it. We recently just got him voted out. He's been in there for a long time, and the new guy seems like he wants to actually get stuff done for people. I met with him personally. We get along well. So if I come to office, then that was one of the first things on the docket. So sorry. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate the question. I went on a little longer than I expected to, but yeah, Home Place is kind of a soft spot for me, because I live right by there for the longest time and frequently visit there. Actually, Jimmy B's. I went to Jimmy B's all the time.
There's other options out there to use those dollars to have workforce credits. So we build market rate apartments, or we build market rate housing, and perhaps the teacher from Greenwood or one of our police or fire can live there and get a credit for X number of years while they save up for a deposit on a home. Additionally, we could look at transportation options to augment a lack of current affordable or attainable supply. While I don't agree with, nor do I endorse having a large capital investment in something like the Indigo, large red line,
That would be disastrous in Carmel. I know there's a big push for that a while ago, back when Red Line was first going up. There's a big dispute over who was going to pay for it, if it was going to be Indianapolis, if it was going to be Carmel. Ultimately, in Carmel, we decided it's not the best use for our residents. Most of our residents are self-sufficient with transportation, and that would just cut down on traffic flow. So I wholly agree with that decision. Red Line or something like that should not be here. Personally, I kind of like the idea of like a trolley system. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Tennessee, but I would occasionally come visit Indianapolis, and downtown Indy back in I think it was the mid to late 80s, they actually had a trolley system. Or was it Fort Wayne? Downtown, either Fort Wayne or Indianapolis. Sorry, I was like 4. They had a trolley, and I think something like that would be aesthetically appropriate for specifically downtown Carmel, and it would be cool, but they're really expensive. So it would just come out of, it'd have to be out of the surplus once debt is aggressively paid down and we're at a much more comfortable spot. Something like that could be cool. I don't know how useful or practical it would be, but it would be mass transit, and it would be neat.
Do very much support a circulator type transportation option to get seniors and others across the city in a much more affordable way.
This next question will go to you, Councilor Finkum, first. Dozens of small businesses have been displaced in recent years for redevelopment projects, and some business owners forced to relocate have said they don't feel the city has any interest in keeping them here. Directly or indirectly, you both have been privy to many of the projects as city councilors. What would you do as mayor to support existing small businesses and encourage new ones to open here?
That's a fantastic question. I actually ran into this quite a bit when I was knocking doors. There were small business owners so with the 401 or the 501, I forget what they're called, the 5-story apartment buildings, the first floor is commercial space. most of the people who own these buildings are used to residential renting, and most of them don't know how to deal with commercial space. So because they get TIF money, they're like, okay, yeah, that'll work, but they don't really know how to manage the ground floor. So oftentimes the rent rates are super duper high because they're counting like how much money would I bring in if this first floor were full of apartments, high-end luxury apartments or whatever. So they they charge the entire rent rate for that floor to a commercial business, but you got to be some kind of like mega globalist corporation to be able to afford there. These are the words from several small business owners that I've talked to. So because the competition is so steep, a lot of these local business owners feel like they're getting pushed out. So that's why earlier when I was talking about the taking out the parking lot and putting it with having like a parking garage there instead, and having that open area commercial real estate or retail commercial space, that's part of what I was talking about, is to address this issue specifically. What I had envisioned was maybe like a horseshoe type shape, 1 to 2 stories, and then have a green space in the middle with maybe like a tree or two and some, not just picnic benches, but some I don't know, weather resistant tables that can be there permanently, embedded into the ground, and people can hang out there and then get, Mike's Burgers and head to Edna's Art Gallery and then hang out with their family and play with the dog and the kids and whatnot out in the green space in the middle. I think that would be really cool, and I'm super open to that. I don't want like a strip mall, a strip plaza, anything like that. Those are historically kind of tacky. But if you got a parking garage for employees and the building next to it, and then this area for retail space, commercial retail space, that's actually green in the front, I think that would be really super cool.
Thank you, Emery. Small business is a
So that's what I would do.
backbone of any community. In many communities, 80% of businesses are small business. My husband and I both own small businesses, and it's near and dear to our hearts. I'm also on the National Small Business Advisory Leadership Council. And that's important to me to make sure I get the voice of all small business owners across the country to learn from and apply here. My Elevate Carmel plan suggests adding a business liaison position so we can serve small businesses better. We don't have anybody regularly talking to our folks, large employers or small employers. We've lost businesses in this community because we are not saturating ourselves with the voice of our community, our business community. As I'm meeting with business owners, I'm asking, when's the last time someone from the city of Carmel sat down and had a conversation with you? And routinely, it's never. We have an opportunity there to, again, make sure they're appropriately represented and on committees, transportation committees, development committees, plan commission, arts commission, and other things to make sure our small businesses are represented at every step of the way.
I've actually gone to several city meetings. I've never seen her at any of them, but there are actually quite a few small business owners that show up to these. A lot of times, whatever the business proposal is, oftentimes impacts them, or they would like to see something done in the area or with their space. So they do actually come to these meetings. They do sit down. So I mean, granted, it's not like widespread where the city's like, hey, all small business owners come here for this meeting. I don't know that we do anything like that. Actually, I'd be open to that. That could be cool. Well, there actually is a regular, I think like a monthly or quarterly business luncheon that takes place in City Hall. I meant to go to this past one, but I missed it. I think I was out knocking doors that day. But anyway, yeah. I really like your thoughts on selling back properties the city owns. I never felt the city should be in the real estate business. 100%. That is thanks, Rich. That is a tangent I could go on for a minute. I'll keep this super tight. Yeah, so the city of Carmel owns 120 to 130 parcels of land. Just depends on time frame. Last I checked, it was 125. Basically because the CRC, or the city basically, is a tax exempt entity, it's sitting on all these parcels of land that should be taxed, and that money that would be taxed should be going to police, fire, emergency services, paying down debt, and most importantly, should be going to our schools. Instead, we're paying a referendum to offset the difference because we're sitting on a whole bunch of land that's getting zeroed out. So every year that goes by that we still own these parcels of land, that's only hurting our bottom end, our bottom line, and also, from what I gather, this is purely a rumor and hearsay because there's no documentation, but apparently these parcels of land are being sold in sweetheart deals to developers Or maybe they're not. I don't know. It could be just a rumor. The kicker is there's no transparency on what happens with those parcels of land. It says who sold them and who bought them, but there's never a negotiated price that's ever disclosed or how much the transaction fees or anything like that cost. So that is a huge issue that absolutely needs to be addressed. Amen. Thanks, Rich. But yeah, good point. Yeah, that is absolutely something we need to do. That would be a very direct impact, is to offload these parcels of land.
We also have community development corporations which can augment rent for the right types of small businesses for particular districts. So I think we should look at that as well as an option to keep our small businesses here.
Councilor Nelson?
Well, like my colleague and my opponent, I also am a small business owner and have been my entire professional career. So this is something I'm sensitive to as well. And I've certainly seen how the rents have gotten so high that many small businesses aren't able to continue to call Carmel home. We need to be business friendly, not just to large companies and large developments, but also for small businesses. I want to make sure that we have a small business incubator, just like they do in Fishers, and a test kitchen as well. I want to make sure that we have hub zone areas where small businesses will be protected in lower rent areas or rent controlled areas. We need to partner with One Zone and work with them to provide solutions, if that would be help with rent or opportunities to help kickstart a small business. Yes, I agree with Sue. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy here in Carmel, and I will make sure that Carmel remains, or even becomes more so, a friend of small business.
Okay, moving on to the next question. And Councilor Nelson, this will go to you first. As Carmel's population has grown, so has the amount of vehicles on its roads. What is your plan to address increasing traffic congestion in the city?
Okay, real quick. Just a side note, I have not seen this yet, so I don't know where the responses are going to be. The very first question of the live stream, I did see that portion, but so far, everything else I'm completely blind to. So I'd like to answer this before they do, because I don't want to seem like maybe they'll get influenced. Traffic flow as it currently stands is one of the best in the nation. The issue is, as you increase in population density, the roundabouts can get locked down. There was a year that I lived in Michigan at not too far from Battle Creek, and the exit that I lived off of was a roundabout. And I was like, oh, this is just like home back in Carmel. The problem is, whenever it was about 6 o'clock, which is about when I would be able to make it to that exit, because I lived a decent ways away, the roundabout would get locked down by oncoming traffic going the other way. So traffic trying to get into the roundabout from the interstate would back all the way up into the interstate. Roundabouts are great until you have a steady stream of traffic going on one side and then it locks down the other two lanes. So an idea that I had was, if that becomes an issue with all these apartments coming up, if there are problem roundabouts, especially during certain areas of the day or certain times of the day in certain areas, if there's an issue with a particular roundabout at a certain time or whatnot, I would be open to just a brainstorming idea that I had one day. If we had a red light, not a traffic light, but simply a light that was red, kind of like a flashing red light, like a stop sign, that was solar powered, because it'd be completely self-sustaining, because it would come on very, very infrequently. If there was a car that was seated in the same spot for like 2 minutes, then it would trip the red light in the other two lanes to open up traffic flow. If somebody in the other two lanes has been sitting in the same spot for 2 minutes, it trips a traffic light going the other way. As long as there's traffic flow, that sensor will not go off and it will remain a normal roundabout. The only time the red light would ever come on is if one car had been sitting for a long time. I think I actually wired something like that back in my college days, in one of my engineering classes. It didn't use solar power, but it was basically how a stoplight works. Anyway, just something I remembered from college, like, oh, this could actually be practical in this type of a setting. So that's what I would do.
Right. I hear this a lot too. When is enough enough?
Actually, one other thing. On Rangeline Road, there is a section of a bunch of like flower pots that cut off 2 extra lanes, and it would open up traffic flow in that area quite a bit if those flower pots were not there. I think it's supposed to like set apart the bike lane or something like that. I don't know. I'm torn with this. I think they should not be there, and the bike lanes can just use either that section of the street or even the sidewalk. I don't know. I would like some community input on this, but it's something that I would like to just open up. Basically, essentially, if there's a heavy traffic congestion area, I would be open to widening the lane or something like that. One of the worst roundabouts is between 4:30 and 6 p.m. off of Pennsylvania on 116th Street, where everybody's trying to get on 231 north or south. Yeah, that is an area that I would like to use one of those like flashing red light type things. So it wouldn't be a flashing light. It would just like pop on for the other 2 lanes. Just be like, hey, stop, wait a minute. So yeah, that is a great example. Thank you, Candace.
I'll tell you, we have grown a lot, and there are certain areas like 116th and Range Line that you can get caught in a traffic jam pretty quickly. But I'll tell you, our city is growing, and we're investing a ton into our infrastructure, our roads. We have some of the finest infrastructure in the state of Indiana.
Side note, Carmel is currently being sued by, I believe it is either Fishers or Noblesville. I'm pretty sure it's Fishers, for a few $1 million because there is amount of money that was supposed to go to them, but Carmel took it for themselves instead. Had to do with percentage of population versus amount of money brought in. And Carmel's excuse and reasoning was, well, we spent so much money and went super far into debt building infrastructure that Fishers, or Noblesville, whichever one it was, pretty sure it was Fishers, that Fishers did not spend their money on. So the excuse was, well, we took this extra money because we overspent and we deserve this. That to me is absurd, absolutely ridiculous. So I'll be interested to see how that lawsuit pans out. Personally, I mean, obviously I would like for Carmel to get it because holy cow, we're so far into debt already. But at the same time, like, it's not fair. Fishers should, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I think Fishers should get the money that should have gone to them, and to deny them because we overspent it's a bit silly.
And will continue to do so when I'm mayor. But we need to make sure that we continue to study our traffic, and whenever there's a new development, make sure that our current road network can absorb that. It is going to be a challenge.
Side note, I've been to a lot of the city council, city committee meetings, and the amount of time that's spent in detail on parking spaces, parking availability, and traffic flow, getting in and out of entrances for parking lots or parking garages is really exceptional. The people who are at these commissions really, they care a lot about this specific thing. So I think the people who are currently running these committees are doing a fantastic job, and I want to keep them doing what they're doing. I tried to get Carmel to schedule the lights all along 116th before they spent millions on roundabout. I like the idea of your solar powered light idea since we can't go back. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was the thing is the roundabout's there, so we need to utilize it. I don't want to put in a traffic light because ultimately I think traffic lights are in large less efficient. But if you could have something where there is like timing the lights would have been good. But yeah, something to where you can have an intermittent traffic light. I was in Paris driving to the Charles de Gaulle airport, and there was a massive roundabout that had 4 traffic lights in it, and I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. Like, that defeats the entire purpose of a roundabout, having 4 lights in the middle of the roundabout. Then I realized, like, oh, when you have excessive traffic flow going one way, it locks things down. That's kind of why I thought it'd be better to have one at the entrance instead of inside of the 4 quadrants of the roundabout. Because like people enter the roundabout and then have to stop halfway into it from a light, and that was ridiculous. So anyway, side note.
Because our city has grown so much, but these roundabouts have helped significantly to move traffic. There's less waiting in line. And investments like what we did on Keystone, that was both state and federal money, helped an immense amount to move traffic north and south. And the investments that the county's making on 146th Street, a main thoroughfare now, is going to be helping to relieve some of this stress too. And once some of these developments, the one at 116th and Range Line is finished, I expect traffic will become easier as well.
Councilor Finkham?
If he's talking about the 5-story apartment building that's being put on the roundabout at 116th and Rangeline, that will not only not help traffic flow, that would do the opposite of helping traffic flow. Unless if there's another development going on that I'm unaware of, there is another development where there used to be a gas station. That's going to be commercial front, so which will incentivize more traffic. So I'm a little confused. I don't know what development means talking about that will improve traffic flow.
Thank you. We foresaw some of these problems, and in 2016, we released about $200 million of bonds to build a lot of infrastructure around the city, including multiple roundabouts on the east side, Illinois Street, and other major thoroughfares like the Boulevard and Main Street heading west as well. We've invested in our community because you gave us that opportunity to do so. You believe that roads are important, and they're an important differentiator for us in attracting talent and businesses. So while we need to continue to invest, we also need to continue to partner with our colleagues around the county, both the county commissioners, the county council, and our other mayors and councils, because they too have to make investments in their community and their infrastructure to make sure our community is not clogged. Having a transportation vehicle, again, a circulator around the county will also help people get out of their cars, and creating a really great walkable community will also help reduce congestion. But you know, Midtown is almost a victim of its own success. We have so much traffic in that area because we program so many things in that district, whether it be Main Street, and we continually shut down roads there, which also does not help always those small businesses. And we also program Midtown. It's fun, it's vibrant and exciting, but it's sometimes overwhelming and hard to get around. So
I agree. I feel like the Midtown area should probably be instead of I think there needs to be one more lane added, maybe like a center lane or something. Just widen that area a little bit to help help improve traffic flow. It is a bit congested, especially if there's a festival or something like that going on. There's that big green space. I forget the name of it. It's where the Kindle's Market is always held and the farmers market and all that kind of stuff. That area is definitely a big issue. So I currently don't have a ton of great ideas because we're built to the sky like on all those areas. So I don't know if there's room to widen streets or not. I'm pretty sure there's not, but at least if you did, you'd probably have to knock out sidewalks, and that would not be a good idea. So I think we're just kind of stuck with that traffic being the way it is.
we also need to look for other areas in our community where we can program events, invest in green space, invest in public space to spread that traffic around as well.
Councilor Nelson.
To help.
I have mixed feelings about that. She's right in the fact that the only way to lighten traffic flow to that area is to have less stuff there and more stuff elsewhere in town. But having a central corridor being the downtown area, and then having the rest of Carmel, the two flanks being residential, I think that should probably be left the way it is. Trying to increase other areas or creating green space in residential areas and having a huge part of the city or even the surrounding county or surrounding cities coming here for large events, I don't like that idea, actually. So I think we're just, like was said, a victim of our own success with the Midtown area. I think Midtown should probably be kept the center hub for doing that kind of stuff. I don't think we should spread that around.
Alleviate traffic in the central district, central corridor. We could look at reimagining certain areas on the west on Michigan Road and on Meridian Street to help alleviate some of the congestion in the central district. We could also look at a commuter bus that would help individuals during the evening get from the east or the west, south of the north into the central district without having to drive a car. I know we have over 8 parking garages now, but I know parking is still always a challenge in the central district. But in terms of public transportation, we shouldn't go it alone on a major capital investment like that. We could look at working with with the Indy Chamber and our sister cities around the county to help move people around much easier and more effectively.
The biggest thing with that, I do agree with that specifically with Westfield. 146th Street and US 31, That section is an absolute nightmare. There are 2 traffic lights that are like back to back. Actually, it's like 4. There's 4 traffic lights that are all right there. And trying to get through there, it took me, I was going to knock doors in a neighborhood just west, I think like half a mile down the street, west of US 31, past Clay Terrace. And I went there at about 4:30, 5 o'clock is when I was heading that way. And it took me 23 minutes to get from the entrance or to get off on the exit. I was waiting in line to get from that spot to turn left at that light heading north on US 31. 23 minutes to get from that spot into the neighborhood. Traffic was that bad and it was just that much of a standstill. So because that road is bordering Westfield, I think we would have to, I personally have not researched this, so frankly, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure because it splits the county line, or the city line, I mean, we would probably need to work with Westfield on who's going to pay for that. Just south of 146th Street, there's a sign that says "Welcome to Carmel" as you're coming into the Clay Terrace, so that technically might be Westfield, because there's that Best Buy that's there. That I know is Westfield. South of that is Carmel. I'm not sure who owns that street, bottom line. But I would like to work with Westfield to get that street, those 4 traffic lights figured out, because that is a mess.
Councilor Finkham?
I definitely want a better solution than Indigo because it's been ineffective and expensive, and I want nothing to do with an investment like that.
Actually, that is correct.
And I also want to point out Michigan Road, as much as I think we would love to redo that, that is a state-owned road, so we won't have any impact there other than trying to work with our partners at the state legislature and NDOT to make improvements along that corridor. But that is not ours to fix because it's not ours that we own. And lastly, my opponent mentioned we should do traffic studies. Every single project we do has a traffic study attached to it, so we already look at those.
Okay, we're going to move on to the last question before the closing statements. And Councilor Finkham, this one goes to you first. As you think about...
Rich says, I appreciate you saying you don't know something if you don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've lived enough life to know that when you put your foot in your mouth, it's not good. So I would rather just be honest and upfront on the front end and just be like, hey, I don't know. I mean, it's something that is absolutely researchable. I just haven't spent the time. It'd probably take like 10 minutes to find out. So it's not like hard information to find out. I just want to keep the live stream going.
About the challenges facing our city, what is the biggest issue that keeps you up at night, and how do you propose to address it?
That is an easy question. I've already detailed a lot of that, but it's fiscal. There are so many things as it relates to our revenue that's
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to move on to the last question before the closing statements. And Councilor Finkham, this one goes to you first. As you think about the challenges facing our city, what is the biggest issue that keeps you up at night, and how do you propose to address it?
Okay, so I kind of halfway paid attention, but I just want to go ahead and answer that directly. The biggest thing is absolutely our debt. We're $1.5 billion in debt. The city planning wants to continue to put us further into debt by building more 5-story apartment buildings and getting our population up to 160,000 people, and then that will pay for existing debt plus all the new debt that was just accrued at high interest rates. I disagree with that plan. So my biggest thing is I just want to get our debt under control, and I want to get our overdeveloping, especially with 5-story buildings, especially 5-story apartments. I want to get that under control. The biggest issue is the TIF program and the CRC, the Carmel City Redevelopment Commission. That is something that has been good in the past, I think. Just the past 10 years, they've gone way overboard, way overboard. Overall, I think it's a good idea. We happen to get lucky. 60% of most TIF districts around the nation fail. TIFs were invented in the 1960s in California. Today, TIF districts are illegal in the state of California. So Carmel got lucky, and it's worked out. But I think it's time to step away from the casino table, stop playing the odds, and assuming everything will just pan out. So I want the TIF district and the CRC to be less busy. I'm open to more development as long as it is much smaller in scope, much more cost effective. And we have dozens of buildings that cost tens of millions of dollars each that are going up all over the city, like every quarter. And that is ridiculous. So I would be open to like maybe developing a parking garage here, like once a quarter, or maybe there's a blighted land, which is originally what TIFs are meant to do, is to improve blighted land, I would be up to turning that into green space, or like I said, a 1 or 2 story commercial retail space. That is something I'm open to, or widening a road where it needs to be done. So that kind of stuff I'm open to doing with TIF, but just pumping out $20 million 5-story buildings like their Pez dispenser is nuts. So that is my biggest thing.
That is an easy question. I've already detailed a lot of that, but it's fiscal. There are so many things as it relates to our revenue that's out of our control. Are we going to have another recession? Is the state going to change the property tax, which is 40% of our revenue? Is the state going to change the LIT, which is a local income tax, which is 45% of our revenue? Is the food and beverage tax going to go up or down? Those are all key revenue indicators, and they're all many cases for us out of our control. And recently, you probably read headlines where the city of Fishers put in a change into the state omnibus tax bill that is taking $8 million a year away from us next year, more the year after that, and over a 10-year period, about $50 million. Ladies and gentlemen, that would fund our 7th fire station. That would hire more police. And so fiscal issues are the one thing that keeps me up at night, because we made a promise to you to make sure that you have a safe community, a beautiful community, a community that's easy to travel around and that you're proud of. We need fiscal flexibility and somebody with a great deal of experience managing 8-figure budgets, 12 years on council, leading the finance committee, to have their eyes on the budget to make sure we're protecting your wallet.
As for taxes, from what I gather, just about every gubernatorial candidate has an interest in reducing state tax to the tune of maybe potentially getting rid of it altogether. I know somebody who's running for lieutenant governor. They are pushing hard to eliminate the property taxes. So that would absolutely impact our bottom line. But I know that the sales tax, I believe, would increase as a result. So we would just have to figure out other ways to get income. If that happens, first of all, if a recession hits or this tax change takes place, then I would be much, much more interested in doing the 1 to 2 story retail space. So help local businesses out. And also if taxes increase or taxes predominantly come from sales taxes, then that's something I want to have more in Carmel, is people paying more sales tax. So that could help our bottom line. But anyway, sorry. I just wanted to give them my 2 cents on that.
Councilor Nelson?
Thank you. And I agree with my opponent. Being fiscally smart is a key issue. And I think our city has been fiscally smart. But the thing that keeps me up at night is our school district. I sound like a broken record, but our schools are the #1 reason given when people say why they chose to move to Carmel. It is a key economic driver for our local economy. And I can't help but have nightmares watching what's happening in our next door neighbor of Fishers in Hamilton Southeastern. That school board has been removing books. They have been disempowering teachers to the point where teachers are leaving. Their superintendent was forced to resign. And when Moms for Liberty says they're going to do something, folks, we need to believe them. That's what keeps me up at night. I realize my opponent pointed out that next year is a school board election, and she's absolutely right. There will be 2 seats up for election, and if Moms for Liberty candidates win, they will seize control of the school board. We need a mayor who will stand up and speak out. As I always say, if you want to mess with your property values, mess with your school district. And as mayor, I won't let that happen.
Okay. Personally, I would not include that in my mayoral campaign, predominantly because as mayor, there's nothing in the tool belt that allows a mayor to do anything like that. So to make that my key cornerstone of my campaign, I don't know that's a good idea. I'll just say that. If you're running for school board, absolutely. That is like your bread and butter. You should be running on those kinds of things. If you're not running for school board, there's not a lot in your power. It'd be the equivalent of me running for city council, and I'm going to my neighboring districts like, hey, you'll really like it if I'm elected city council. So there's nothing you can do as city council in that other district. Similarly, there's nothing a mayor can do over school board. School board is determined by, the schools, and what determines that is determined by school board members, and they're the ones who determine who the superintendent is going to be. The mayor doesn't have any influence over that at all. So to make that your core platform, I think is unwise, just to put it the least. The schools need to be transparent with their money. I agree with that. They keep asking, but we never know where the money went. That is true. I definitely agree with that. Again, that is a school board issue. So the superintendent, school board, they're the ones who handle the monetary day-to-day ongoings. That is not mayoral's responsibility. The only thing a mayor can do, or city council, or a city in general, is if the city or if the school approaches the city and is like, hey, we would like to add a soccer field or add a football field or renovate the swimming pool or add an extension to the building itself. Something that is a physical, what am I looking at? Structure. Anything that is structurally relevant or infrastructure, anything like that. That is something that the city can impact. So as mayor, if somebody were to be like, I don't like what this group's running on, so I'm going to block your funding for any kind of improvement project until you get these people out. That's about the only thing he can do. And if he does that, that would be absolute suicide for your campaign. If you're running on protecting schools and you deny budget funding, that will derail your entire platform. The only other thing he could do is pass an ordinance against a group of individuals that by he, I mean any mayor, like not specifically Miles. I'm just using him as an example. But if any mayor's like, I don't like the political ideologies of this particular group, so I want to pass a city ordinance to ban that group and others like them from being able to operate in our city, that is absolutely a violation of our First Amendment. We have freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition, and that's what something like this would be. Because the school is a government entity, we absolutely, as citizens, have the right to petition a change to take place within that school. So if if a mayoral candidate, or not candidate, if a mayoral figure were to attempt to do something like that, they would be impeached immediately. Because, just this is a couple weeks ago now, the governor of, I believe it was New Mexico, tried to pass a gun ban and I believe she was impeached from office. So it'd be the same kind of thing. So to have your entire platform as mayor to be running on, I'm going to block people's ideology that I don't like out of the school, that's not smart. Because you can't do anything about it. There's literally nothing you can do except upset people who are conservatives, which is a large population in the city, and make them want to go vote against you. That's just about all that's going to do. People on the left who are really excited about it, good on them, but they have to understand that there's nothing he'll be able to do about that. And I've actually talked to a number of Democrats that just going door to door talking to people that are, it's wild. If you've ever played a video game and have talked to like an NPC or non-player character, they have like this dialogue prompt that's the same thing, and it's weird. When I'm talking to Democrats, they do, not like Democrats in a whole, but there have been several that have the exact same words, same speech, same cadence, and the same like pause and look away for a second. And it's wild, but they say exactly this. I always thought I'd vote for Miles, but I'm just not sure anymore. And I always wondered at the time, like, why would you say that? And I don't want to be the candidate that pries like, oh yeah, let me dig up dirt on other candidates. I don't want to do that. So I just let it be. But after seeing that this seems to be the core of his platform and his campaign, if that's the case, people who understand there's nothing you can do, I can see why they would be disappointed. So sorry, that's a really long soapbox. That's a big reason why I don't get any kind of involved in social politics. and culture war topics. I think ultimately it's a short-term gain for a long-term detriment, and this nation has been on a cycle repeat of that for the past like 10 years or so. That's something I want to get away from. Also, explicitly as mayor, I don't even have impact on any of that kind of policy anyway. So there's no reason to put a dog in a fight that I don't even have any business being in. So anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. Sorry, that was a really long-winded tangent.
Councilor Finkham?
It's a role of a leader, a true leader, to diffuse, not fan, the flames of divisiveness.
I would agree with that. And running as an independent who's staying away from culture war topics, that is something that I'm absolutely on board with. She had some spicy stuff that she was involved with a couple months ago. A lot of conservatives are not happy with her because she not only went to and spoke at a Pride event, but she also endorsed it. And at that Pride event, there were drag queens, and there were kids putting cash into the underwear of drag queens. That was deeply upsetting, obviously, for a lot of conservatives. And I don't know what she stood to gain from anything like that. Because that would cater specifically to a leftist audience, which there's a Democrat running. Miles is going to get those votes anyway. So to do that would only upset the majority of your base and cater to people who aren't going to vote for you. So if she's going to pretend like she is all hands clean and innocent of this, I'm going to raise an eyebrow to that.
That's what my opponent has been doing. Magic Miles brought up Moms for Liberty in schools one more time because he doesn't want you to know he's not prepared, he hasn't had any impact, and he doesn't have a plan.
Councilor Nelson, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I haven't heard so much name calling since Donald Trump.
All right, I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. If it's just going to be petty, whatever, I'll bear through it.
Folks, that's not how I'm going to lead as mayor. You need a mayor with vision, integrity, who's accountable. That's the type of mayor I will be. I will make sure that our best days are still ahead of us. This is a great city, and I will wake up every day looking for answers and solutions to make this community even better.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to make a closing statement. And please hold your applause until the very end. Councilor Nelson, you will go first on closing remarks.
I haven't thought about a closing statement. Maybe I should give one. I don't know if I'll take 5 minutes. But yeah, essentially, if you want to see a slowdown in 5-story apartment development and see us not go any further into debt developing these kind of apartments and just major overdevelopment in general, I'm your only option. So if you don't like either the two candidate for whatever it is that they're running on or things about their personality, then I welcome your vote as well. But the main thing is I'm your only option for true fiscal conservativeship. I just want to maintain what we've got. What we have is fantastic, and I don't want to do too much. There is absolutely a thing as too much. You can have ice cream's great, but too much is going to be bad for you. So let's do things within moderation. I just want to see how things play out. My vision for the city is instead of doing expensive development, I would rather have more community involved with festivals, specifically with art. Art is a great opportunity for us to really delve into. We've spent millions of dollars on art projects and don't really have a core base for that. Since we've already spent the money developing these things, I would like to see us lean into that a little bit more by having a local art festival for local Indiana artists. I want this to be self-sustained, and I want it to where we auction off existing art, out-of-state art especially. We have a warehouse full of art, and I'd like to see it to where every year, actually maybe even a couple times a year, maybe 1 to 4, I don't have the numbers figured out yet, but 1 to 4 art festivals a year, where we will take an existing statue that costs us like $250,000 each. I would like to auction that, take the proceeds from that to fund the new this art festival and the new art that will go in to replace it. I want that art to be done by local or at least Indiana artists, and I want the residents who go to this festival to have tickets where they can vote for their favorite works, kids included. And whoever wins, take the top 5, and then that's going to be the deciding factor. We'll look at those 5, ask for a bid. The Art Commission will figure out which would be the best, most viable economic way to go, and also weigh in whoever has the most votes. So that will be the deciding factor. And then whatever artists were in the top 5, the next go around for the art festival, I would like to auction off their basically their concept art. So they'll basically build a concept art sculpture of what they will put into a roundabout or a painting that will go in a mural, and they can auction this off at the next go around. And half the proceeds will go to the artist, the other half will go into the art fund specifically, so that over time the art fund will become fully self-sustaining. And the great way to kickstart that is we've currently got a warehouse full of artwork that we can easily auction off and use that to bankroll the front end of the art festival itself. So that will be essentially a free and potentially lucrative way for the city to bring in people and bring in a large and strong community of residents that feel like they actually have input and say, without going further into debt, without building more high-rise apartments that ultimately don't really help with affordability of homes anyway. And I think there'll just be a better way to go. So, yeah, that's what I've got. Thanks.
Well, thank you again for being here tonight, and those of you who are watching virtually. Thanks again to Anne Marie for moderating. Thanks again to my opponent. Thanks again to the Palladian and the Current for hosting this.
By the way, reached out to them, and they were absolutely uninterested in having me come and be part of this debate. Just side note. Also, they had me fill out some questionnaires that the other 2 candidates did. I'm talking about the Carmel Current. They released the other 2, but refused to release mine, and told me that that's not something that they're going to do. But thank you for filling out the questionnaire anyway. And then when I was out knocking doors, I knocked on someone's door who was one of the owners for the Carmel Current, and his wife was extremely emphatic about how strong of supporters they are of Sue Finkham and her campaign. So all that's very interesting.
Carmel is one of the best places in America to live and raise a family, and I'm running for mayor because I want to keep it that way. I want to build on Mayor Brainerd's legacy and his vision and keep Carmel moving forward. We've heard a lot tonight about both our plans for Carmel, and it comes down to this: leadership and vision. My opponent has talked a lot tonight about surveys and commissions, but as a business executive,
I have to agree with that. It seems like most of what Sue is running on is she's going to form another committee, another commission, do surveys, and she uses a lot of words to say very, very little. A lot of what she's running on is very non-committal, and I noticed, particularly careful to avoid the topic of 5-story apartment buildings. I've talked to a number of people who work for the city, and the kind of lingo and verbiage they use to continue on with growth and development, she uses that same language in her physical plan on her website.
what I know firsthand is that you can't lead by committee. A leader listens, but ultimately has to make a decision that is in the best interest of the community. I want to invest in what makes our community thrive, build a transparent, inclusive, and efficient Carmel. I'll focus on ensuring that we protect our existing charm and character of our neighborhoods, defending our nationally ranked schools, keeping us safe, and continuing to invest in our world-class amenities while keeping our taxes low. My background as an entrepreneur with decades of experience in business ownership, team development, executive leadership, and nonprofit board service will serve me well as our next mayor. My experience on city council has shown that I can work across party lines to pass legislation that keeps our community moving forward. My campaign for mayor is rooted in a roll up your sleeves and contribute attitude, which I learned from growing up in a family where service was encouraged and standing up for one's principles was demanded. Since being elected,
I don't know if I want to sit through the whole 5 minutes of him and then Sue. Maybe I don't really feel like it. As far as me, like, I'm just a guy. Like, there's nothing special or fantastic or fancy about me. I'm just absolutely fed up with so many decades of poor options and poor choices. It was time to do something, and the people running in this campaign, the two opponents we have, both of them are completely ignoring one of the greatest concerns that Carmel residents have, and they're just completely shoveling it under the rug. Ultimately, it's better for the bottom dollar for their donors and for the people who want to develop here, and I don't care about any of that. I want to serve the people as the people want to be served. That's why I'm doing this, and that's all that I am. I appreciate you watching if you watched this whole thing, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. I don't really care to watch their concluding comments. This stream's already gone on for over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and call it. Got you to the end, so again, thank you so much if you watched all the way through. Leave a like on the video, it helps the algorithm, but I really appreciate you. I really want to build a community that's not just right or left or even center. I just want to build something that's there for everybody. So at the end of all my videos, I always say stay classy. And the big reason for that is because I don't want there to be infighting within this community, and I want people to basically get along and share differing ideas. But you can disagree, but just stay classy. So I really appreciate you being here again, and as always, stay classy. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.